speak for only 30 minutes. Usually 30 minutes is an introduction to an introduction. So there's a lot of stuff that I wanted to cover. I probably won't get to all of it, but I'm going to get to as much of it as I can. If you have your Bible, I want you to turn to Daniel chapter 1. This particular passage is probably central to the idea that non-Christians, anti-Christians, understand education better than Christians do. And here it is right in the center of the Bible, and yet many Christians just miss it. Here we have in the United States today, you can choose where to send your children to school. Now you may have to pay a little extra money to do that, but right now in most, I would say almost every state, you can make the decision as to where you want to send your children to school. You can send your children to a school and you can pick the curriculum. You can change schools if you want because you don't like the curriculum. You can change schools if you don't like the teachers. You can change schools if you don't like the emphasis of the particular school. You can change schools for any reason whatsoever. And yet 90% of Christians send their children essentially to a Babylonian school. So let's look at the first chapter of Daniel, the first verse of Daniel. It says, in the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. The Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand, along with some of the vessels of the house of God. And he brought them to the land of Shinar, to the house of his God, and he brought the vessels into the treasury of his God. Right at the beginning of this, begin to see this is a battle between two gods. There is no such thing as neutrality in education. Every fact in the universe is interpreted in terms of some issue related to God. That God can be humanistic, it can be the idea of chance, but there is a God at the center of everything. Then the king ordered Ashkenaz, the chief of the officials, to bring in some of the sons of Israel, including some of the royal family and of the nobles. Youths in whom there was no defect, who were good-looking, showing intelligence in every branch of wisdom, endowed with understanding and discerning knowledge, and who had ability for serving in the king's court, and he ordered him to teach them the literature and language of the Chaldeans. So Nebuchadnezzar knew, look, the way you change a culture is get the best and the brightest of the students, the young people. Remember, this isn't adults, these are young people. Some of them may have been your age. We really don't know how old Daniel was and how old his friends were. But Nebuchadnezzar knew if you get to the youngest people of the society, you can change that society. He also knew if you can get to the best and the brightest of that population, they can then be turned in order to teach others in that particular society. And that's exactly what the humanists have done. But here, this was under pressure. These are people who were taken into Babylonian captivity. They were forced into this particular situation. Today, Christians willingly put their children in essentially a Babylonian school. They know what the curriculum is, and they're still fighting this idea. If we just had prayer and Bible reading in the school, that would change everything. But we had prayer and Bible reading in the 1960s. And it actually gave us the kind of culture we have today. Because it was a baptized humanism. We have separated the sacred and the secular. We're going to pray in the morning, we're going to say the Lord's Prayer, and after that everything else is humanistic. And Christians, many of them, still today are fooled into believing if we just got Bible reading back into the school, again everything would be fine. Who would be teaching the Bible in the schools? Well, the very people who have secularized and materialized the curriculum already. Why would we want them to pray and hold and teach Bible? Then what else would you have? Well, another group over here said, well, we want to teach the Quran in the public school. So now we've got to have the Quran taught as well. And when we have to have prayer 5 times a day, we have to set aside 10 minutes 5 times a day for prayer. I don't know if you're following what's going on with Amazon right now. There's a Muslim contingent at Amazon that says, we want 5 times for prayer at Amazon as workers for 10 minutes each period. So 50 minutes a day, the Muslims want prayer. And this is an inroad into our culture. But this has been going on for a very long time, and Christians have voluntarily gotten into it. they send their children into a humanistic culture, humanistic curriculum, no conception of God whatsoever. The idea that they've evolved over a period of time from the primordial ooze, and we wonder why children are acting, many of them, the way they do. There was an article written by Barbara Reynolds for USA Today. She says, if you wonder why your children go ape in school, and I was shocked that USA Today would actually publish this article. And she actually attributes it to the idea that young people today are being taught that they're evolved animals. And so when children go out and kill other children, or they drive by shootings and so forth, it's no different from killing an animal. We were talking a little earlier, though, animals are treated actually better in our culture today than humans are in terms of abortion. You got abortion is legal. In fact, the Democrat Party, I don't know if you've been following this, Democrat Party, Tom Perez says, you cannot run for office in the Democrat Party unless you believe in a woman's right to kill her unborn baby. That's the new policy from the head of the DNC. Wow. And yet here in Florida, you have turtle eggs that are afforded more protection than unborn babies.
Wow.
And yet, where is this worldview coming from? It's coming from the curriculum within the public school system. It is anti-God from its core. And yet Christians voluntarily send their children there. And they think they're getting a free education. They're not getting a free education. They're getting an education that is indoctrinating them in a contrary worldview. Now, again, to show you how religious all education is, look what happens next. Well, first of all, I want you to notice that they're going to be teaching them in the literature and language of the Chaldeans. They're really upfront about this. We're going to teach you our stuff. What else would they teach them? There's nothing else they could teach them but their own culture, their own literature, their own language. Verse 5. And the king appointed for them a daily ration from the king's choice food, and from the wine which he drank, and appointed that they should be educated 3 years, at the end of which they were to enter the king's personal service. So, this is a neutral education, folks. This is designed to benefit the king. This is designed to benefit the person at the top and his subjects and those who implement the system, the bureaucratic system. What is the most powerful union in the United States today? It's the educational union. Now, from among them, from the sons of Judah, were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. I want you to notice something about their names. Well, anybody here named Daniel? It's got to be among 57 of Max and Pat's grandchildren. No Daniels? Daniel means God is my judge. The L at the end of the name is a general name for God. Hananiah. What does the Yah at the end mean? It's the personal name for God. We say, hallelujah, praise the Lord. Each one of these names is a reflection either of the general name for God, El, or the actual name for God, Yah.
Oh, wow.
Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, who is like God, Azariah. And notice what Nebuchadnezzar does. Then the commander of the officers' assigned new names to them. And to Daniel he assigned the name Belteshazzar, to Hananiah Shadrach, to Mishael Meshach, and to Azariah Abednego. What does that remind you of? It reminds you of two incidents. One, all the way back to the garden. Who named Adam? God did. So naming is a religious function, and it's a demonstration of sovereignty. Who named the animals? Adam did. It shows his sovereignty over a delegated sovereignty over the created order. And you find the same sort of thing in the Tower of Babel, which, by the way, the land of Shinar here. Naming something is extremely important. It is a demonstration of sovereignty. How does the state name children? by infusing within them the name of the state at every level of society. One of the questions we had yesterday was about Christians in politics. When one God is pushed out of the way, another God takes over. The state takes over. Everything is done in the name of the state. Government now is synonymous with politics. And politics at the civil level and the civil level at the most. So this particular chapter here is an indication that, in fact, unbelievers, anti-Christians, understand how important education is more than Christians do. 90% of Christians send their children to a school like this. And the schools are very upfront about it. We don't allow God to be mentioned here. I remember sitting down with a host of a radio show, a Christian radio show. We were talking about Christian education. This was quite some time ago. And we talked about, I put my position on education out there for him. And he said to me, he says, Gary, it's the other schools that are really the problem. In our area, our schools are better. It's the other schools. And I said, Tim, I give the same kind of spiels other places, and the people in other places say the same thing. They say, it's not our schools, it's the other schools. And who do you think the other school is? The other school is your school. And so when you say it's not our school that's the problem, it's some other school that's the problem, it's not our school system that's the problem, it's another school system that's the problem, those other school systems are saying the same thing about your school system. And a few years later, he got out and weren't trying to support and change the public school system. Says it's time that Christians exodus the government schools. So I think more and more Christians are beginning to understand this, but at the same time it's a hard battle because money is the issue. And when we talk a lot about money here, but that verse is that the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. And I know one of the reasons why a lot of Christians will not send their children to a government school is there's some things they're just not going to be able to do. And I remember when we sent our children to a Christian school, my wife taught there, I taught there at the very beginning as well. There are a lot of things we went without. I mean, that's just the way it is. And I always tell people, they say they don't have the money. I said, would you be willing to give me your budget to determine whether or not you can afford sending your children to a private school or a church school? No one's ever taken me up on it. Because they know they can find ways in order to do it. And I've never met any Christian school that would turn away children. They've always found a way to make sure that that child, if the parents really want that child at that particular school, they find a way for it. I've never been in a place where that hasn't been the case. Let me give you a couple of other examples of this understanding that humanists understand education better than Christians do. The humanist educators understand it. This is from Adolf Hitler. It comes from William Shirer's book, The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, which was published in 1960 by Simon & Schuster. If you haven't read it, it's really a great book to read. It's an easy book to read, but it gives you some indication of how slippery the slide is into secularism and materialism. When an opponent declares, "I will not come over to your side," Hitler said in a speech on November 6, 1933, I calmly say, "Your child belongs to us already. What are you? You will pass on. Your descendants, however, now stand in the new camp. In a short time, they will know nothing else but this new community." Now, on May 1st, 1937, Hitler declared, "This new Reich will give its youth to no one, but will itself take youth and give to youth its own education and its own upbringing." Hitler understood this. Well, you're going to establish a 1,000-year Reich. The way to do it, forget the parents. They're going to die off in a generation anyway. Get the youngest of the society, bring them up into the new way of thinking, and as the two older generations pass away, you've got future generations going on and on and on for 40 or 50 generations. John Dunphy wrote an article called "A Religion for a New Age." It was in the Humanist magazine. It was in 1983. And over the years, John Dunphy and I would communicate one another via email. Seems like a really nice guy. But he was just as religious as I am. I understood that. He understood it too. The question is, who was going to win in the end? And here's what he wrote. This is what John Dunphy wrote in his article, A Religion for a New Age. I am convinced that the battle for humankind's future must be waged and won in the public school classroom by teachers who correctly perceive their role as the proselytizers of a new faith, a religion of humanity that recognizes the spark of what theologians call divinity in every human being. There, teachers must embody the same selfless dedication of the most rabid fundamentalist preacher, for they will be ministers of another sort, utilizing the classroom instead of a pulpit to convey humanist values in whatever subject they teach, regardless of the educational level. Preschool, daycare, or large state university. The classroom must and will become an arena of conflict between the old and the new. The rotting corpse of Christianity, together with all its adjacent evils and misery, and the new faith of humanism, resplendent in its promise of a world in which the never-realized Christian ideal of love thy neighbor will finally be achieved. This guy is the flip side of Mac. Mm-hmm. They both understand what this battle is all about. The problem with John Dunphy is there is no way to love thy neighbor when you're a humanist, atheist, materialist. There is no reason to love your neighbor. There is no basis in which to love your neighbor. How can atoms in a jelly form, what I described as a meat machine, that's us. If you're an evolutionist, you believe in evolution, and you somehow magically, and it is magic, by the way, evolution is magic, that something comes from nothing, abiogenesis. You become a meat machine. Where did the stuff come from at the beginning in order for all this to be what it is today? Where did it come from? They have no idea where it came from. Where did the programming come from that makes you what you are? Where did it come from? They have no idea where it came from. I'm reading a book now by Tom Wolfe called The Kingdom of Speech. Came out last year. And in that particular book, Tom Wolfe wrote, I think it was A Few Great Men, about the Apollo astronauts. He's a great, great writer. But in the introduction to this, he says, for 150 years, scientists, anthropologists, sociologists have been trying to figure out why humans speak, why they have language. And he says they've given up. Because last year they gave up. They have no idea how it happened. Of course they don't. Because this stuff doesn't have a mind. There's no programming that can evolve out of nothing. Well, then you've come to the third step. First step is, where did this stuff come from? Number two, where did the programming come from that makes you and me what we are and distinct from the animal creation? Third thing is, how do you account for morality? What's right and what's wrong? The first things that came up out of the primordial soup, and one was stronger than the other and ended up attacking the weaker, gobbled it up in order to increase its size and strength. Did it do something wrong? Where along the line did it automatically say that it's wrong to kill somebody who's weaker than you are? Where does that take place? They can't account for morality. And John Dunphy here, what does he have to do? He has to borrow from our worldview. He talks about evil here. Adjacent evils and misery. There's misery in the evolutionary worldview. Survival of the fittest. And there's no morality to that. Love thy neighbor. There are no neighbors within the evolutionary process here. I understand you have wild animals around here. That's why one of the reasons this fence is up. Panthers. Love thy neighbor. Or we've been told that our DNA matches chimpanzees' DNA about 97%. I don't know if you've ever heard that before. 97% of our DNA matches a chimpanzee. Well, you know that chimpanzees kill other chimpanzees and eat the chimpanzees that they kill? There's a short film on YouTube by Attenborough, and he's narrating this. The cameramen are watching these chimpanzees coming up out of the tree, going attacking this other group of chimpanzees, throwing them out of the trees, pulling their arms off, and then eating them. And here the cameramen are filming this, and Attenborough is just narrating this. Now, 97% share our DNA, 97%. It seems to me that the cameraman would have gone in there and arrested them and put them on trial and put them in jail at least. But in the evolutionary world, that is common. That is the basis of how we got here, they say. Survival of the fittest. Nature, red in tooth and claw. And so, here you're at these young little minds of mush and souls of mush, and you're training them into all this sort of thing. And why are you bothering with that? Just, I would say, put them on steroids, get them in the weight room, make them as strong as you can, and go out there and conquer the world. And by the way, it wouldn't be the first time that people wanted to do that. And if you ever read the book, The Black Book of Communism, 100 million people died. Well, why not? They're atheists. Obviously, they couldn't survive. They weren't that fit. Nazism was the same thing. You think it's any different today in our own culture? If you think it is, you're missing the boat. Given time, they will, in fact, push us out of the way, which they're already attempting to do, limiting speech and so forth. Now, the question is, how do we get into this mess? What is it that changed things? I'm going to quickly run through something regarding the founding of our educational system in the United States. And I hope this works. Yes.
And don't worry about it. Take your time. You're fine.
Okay. I didn't know this, but you're familiar with what's happening at Berkeley, right? Which is the birth of the free speech movement, by the way. And they don't want speech. They don't want free speech. Why don't they want free speech? They only wanted free speech as a way to open the door to get in. We want free speech, we want free speech, we want free speech. Give us a hearing. Tolerate our worldview. And so, okay, you come in here, we'll give you free speech, and we're going to do all this sort of thing for you, blah, blah, blah. They go in there and they've taken over the universities. But once they got in, what did they do? They closed the door behind them. This is the original seal of the University of California at Berkeley. Can you read what it says on the ribbon? Let there be light. And note, I want you to notice what's in the center. It's an open book. You're going to see something in common with almost all the major universities in the United States. But this was not a private Christian school. But they even knew back in the 19th century, even among the seculars who borrowed Christian capital, that you can't educate, you can't enlighten people unless you begin with the premise that there is a God, and that is the basis of how you start your educational process. I don't know if that's a Bible that's open there, but let there be light. I suspect that the majority of the students at Berkeley have no idea where that quotation comes from. And probably it's best that they don't, because I'm sure they would get rid of that if that were the case. This is an early version of Harvard's seal. And you see in the center there, V-E-R-I-T-A-S, veritas, which in Latin means truth. And you see right around that is, let me read it on here if I can, Christo et Ecclesiae, Christ and the church. Truth for Christ and the church. That was Harvard's original motto. The 6 letters, Latin letters, those are open books. I think you can see it better in this This is another Harvard. When you see Veritas, I want you to notice that the two, where it says the V-E-R-I, those are two open books. Where the T-A-S is, you'll see that that book is face down, spine up. Why? Because, and we'll see this particular passage used, they've chosen, a lot of these schools have chosen the passage, in thy light we see light. Which means, if you don't begin with in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, you don't know anything about anything. Now the day will come when the borrowed capital will be depleted. And then the evolutionists and materialists won't have a bank in order to draw any knowledge from. And that's when you're really going to see the divide in our culture. But this was the original seal, one of the original seals of Harvard. Today it's just Veritas. And what they ought to do is have Veritas with a question mark. Because truth changes. I mean, isn't that it today? There's no longer male or female anymore. In fact, if you want to be a female one day and a male the next day, that's okay. That is supposedly scientific today. Well, all the scientists know it's bunk, but they know they can't say anything about it because why? They'll lose their jobs. But if you go on Facebook, there are more than 50 gender identities today. 50 of them. Let's see. This is Yale's. Lux et Veritas. Light and truth. Notice the Latin and also the same Hebrew in the middle. Notice again, an open book. An open book. In order to truly know, you have to begin with the operating assumption, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. If you don't begin with that operating assumption, you don't really know anything about anything. This is Brown. Notice 4 open books. God is our hope. I think that's what that is. These were the top-notch Ivy League schools that you're looking at here. These were the schools, in many cases, made America. But they've been secularized over time. This one's interesting. This is the original at what was called King's College. Today it's called Columbia University. There's a woman sitting on a throne, or really just a chair, and there are 2 children by her feet. She's holding a phrase in mind, and it says, "In thy light we see light." There's God's name up above, and so forth and so on. 1 Peter, I think it's 1 Peter. Let me look at this here. Yeah, 1 Peter 2. 1 Peter 2, verses 1 through 2, expressing the way in which the children should receive instruction, laying aside all malice and guile, and as newborn babes desire the sincere milk of the word, that ye may grow thereby. This is what you're doing. Columbia went off track of this decades and decades ago. You're trying to recapture this. Not at the top end, but at the bottom end. And then there's God is my light is mentioned here, Psalm 27:1, the Lord is my light and my salvation. In the background is a rising sun, alluding to Malachi 4:2, a prophecy of Christ that the Son of Righteousness shall rise with healing in his wings. This is what found America. This is actually the University of Pennsylvania, which was not started as a Christian institution. And I'm trying to find here the very top is theology. And so what encompassed the full curriculum, the capstone was theology. Even at the University of Pennsylvania. It's really remarkable. And I don't know if I thought I had it here. Talks about how, University of Pennsylvania, this was 1755. This is a school that was associated with Benjamin Franklin. Listen to this. Laws without morals are in vain or useless. So, again, not only is education religious, but all education is law-oriented. You don't get rid of God's law. You only create a new God's law, and then you force other people to comply with it. But if you don't have morality, because right now you've got abortion is the law. Killing unborn babies is the law. And the motto for the University of Pennsylvania was, laws without morals are in vain. They're useless. I went on to say they're destructive. You don't have a moral base, but that's the problem we have within our culture today. We don't have a moral base anymore. And that's the end of our society if that continues. And so what's happening at these schools is you're putting, not only are you putting money in the bank, but you are putting spiritual capital in the bank as well. Every child you turn out. Every child you turn out is a little more put back in. And the more you extend what you're doing here, you're putting more and more moral capital back in. And the more Christians we can persuade to understand this and get their children out of government schools, we're putting more borrowed capital back in. Now, I think Amy mentioned that it takes time to do this. This isn't going to happen overnight. And I always use this illustration to get people's attention about how things seem to be so insignificant at the time. But over time, if you persevere and continue to be faithful with what God wants you to do, it is amazing how quickly the growth takes place. We didn't get into this situation overnight. It took us quite a while to do so. We're not going to get out of this situation overnight. It's going to take some time. I just finished watching a film about the beginning of McDonald's and how the McDonald's franchise became what it is today. And Ray Kroc, who took the model of the McDonald's restaurant, he didn't found McDonald's. He found a way to replicate McDonald's. There was one word that he used that made all the difference in his life. He said that was perseverance. Persevere. No matter what the obstacles, persevere. Let me give you this illustration to demonstrate how perseverance can pay off if you're in fact faithful to it. And I read this some time ago in a book, and it came a reality to me when I was flying back from Denver, Colorado in a snowstorm. And I hate flying. It's just unnatural. You ever step on an airplane, that thing is really heavy, and you think, how in the world to get that thing off the ground? And I just don't like flying. I don't like somebody else in the cockpit. I like to be in charge. And not only did you left the plane to someone else, a different person in charge, but you're floating 30,000 feet in the air, and there's nothing underneath you. It's just very unnatural to me. When I was single, didn't have any children, didn't really mind that much dying in an airplane crash. But now it's a little different. Anyway, we're at the Denver airport. There was a snowstorm. It was the first time I'd ever seen de-icing. You change the shape of a wing. The wing of an airplane is very much like a bird's wing. The Wright brothers, wings aren't flat like this, a flat plane. They have shape down like this and shape back, just like a bird's wing. The Wright brothers studied birds' wings and figured this is the way to shape the wings on an airplane. What they didn't have, of course, was propulsion to push them forward, but they even developed their own engine in order to do all that. So if you get ice on the wing, what happens is you change the shape, change the airflow, change the pressure underneath the wing and above the wing, planes crash. It's happened all the time. So put them in these de-icing areas and they put kind of an antifreeze on them. And I still noticed there was some ice on the wings. You know, always the critical thinker and saying, get out there and get a scraper, you know, like you did with your car, scrape it off. They didn't do that. So the plane starts taking off. It's a big, big plane. And in Denver is called, it's a mile-high city. You're up higher. The air is thinner. And so we're taking off. And I didn't say it out loud like the young man with the 23rd Psalm saying it under my breath. I said, punch it. I mean, give it some gas and get this thing up. Because it was just like it was taking forever to get this plane off the ground. So the plane finally gets off the ground. We're up and we're flying to Atlanta. And the worst news I'd ever heard on an airplane is we're running into some storms. It's going to be a bumpy ride into Atlanta. And it was the bumpiest ride I have ever been on. And I had just seen on PBS on how they test airplane wings on the 777. They literally destroy an airplane when they test the wings. They put weights on the wings and they get cables, and with the cables, they pull the wings up beyond the breaking point. They keep pulling the wings up until the wings shatter. So this is visualized in my brain. It's late at night. I can't see the wings. I remember the Twilight Zone episode with William Shatner about the gremlin on the wings. I didn't see any gremlins, but I just had visualization of these wings because we were bouncing up and down and up and down. And I remembered this illustration about if you had taken a sheet of paper and you had folded it in half 50 times, that, depending on the thickness of the paper, that, I won't tell you what the solution to it is. And anyway, so I took out, this is when they actually fed you on an airplane, I took out the little placemat that was made out of paper, and I went and turned it over, and I put, so that's like 2 sheets of paper. I folded it once, it's 2 sheets of paper. I fold it again. That's 4 sheets of paper. You fold it again. 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 1024, is that right? And you keep on going like this. So I took out that piece of, and I started about 2, 4, this thing was bouncing, trying to get my attention off of this plane that's going to disintegrate any minute. And so I'm doing this all by hand. I still have this at home. I forgot to bring it. I carry it around with me every time I do a talk. And I did 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. The numbers are getting larger and larger. I'm having to do multiplication in order to get the number larger and larger and larger. Well, finally we landed, obviously, because I'm here. But the question is, you see, this looks terribly insignificant. Okay? Terribly insignificant. One more fold, still terribly insignificant. And I can't fold this beyond about maybe 5 or 6 or maybe 7 times is the most, but you can fold it mathematically. So, the question is, if I folded this paper in halves, just kept folding it, could keep folding it, how thick would it be? Any guesses from the peanut gallery? You can watch how they do it, I guess.
An inch.
An inch? Anybody? We need somebody with some imagination, some Christian post-millennial imagination.
We got mile highs.
Mile high? Anybody else? Bigger imagination?
2 miles high.
2 miles high, not bigger. Bigger imagination. Post-millennial imagination.
Go to the moon.
You're getting close, but not close enough. If you were to fold this in half, and each time you fold it, you would double the number of sheets. If I put this on this table right here, the distance to the sun is 93 million miles, okay? This would go out into space 75 million miles. And you don't believe me, but it's true. It's true. In fact, I wrote something down here in this. It would be 1 quadrillion, you'd have 1 quadrillion, 125 trillion, 899 billion, 906 million, 842,624 sheets of paper. 2 to the 50th power. If you folded it in 100 times, if you put this here and a rocket here, this would go out into space so far that it would take 12 billion light years to get there in the spaceship, to get to see the last sheet. You see, we lost it one sheet at a time, one fold at a time. Get it back, one fold at a time. And you've got to persevere in doing this. The Babylonians, remember, Israel was under the Babylonians, took the best and the brightest. God returned them. God started off with 12 apostles. One went bad, son of perdition. You and I are here today as a result of their work. What was considered insignificant, meaningless to that age. But as Fred Reed wrote, in fact, it's just an article that I read yesterday, he says, Christianity was the heart and soul of as yet the greatest civilization the world has seen. Those who know nothing of it cannot understand the last 2,000 years and how our world came to be. You are on the front lines of bringing about significant change to our world. And so I would just say, continue to persevere in the work that you've done. Thank you.